Hi, I'm Ernie Zor, and this is another in a series of demonstration videos that Puritas Spring Software has published on YouTube. If you're interested, the earlier ones are related to our Ohio Spousal Support Calculator, our Uniform Domestic Relations Forms, and our Deed and Document Pro applications. If you'd like to see a complete listing of what's available on YouTube, just go to the YouTube website, that's www.youtube.com, and search Puritas Spring Software. We try to limit all of our videos to 10 minutes or less, so you don't need to invest a lot of time getting the information you want. With that in mind, let's get started. In a video published last year, we showed you how you can perform a simple child support calculation in less than 5 minutes. In point of fact, a simple child support calculation takes about 5 seconds using our child support calculator, not 5 minutes. Here's an example. If you have one child with a typical shared parenting arrangement and you don't have any other considerations other than wage incomes, you simply go to line 1A and enter their respective wages. You're done. Everything else is automatic and instantaneous. The entire worksheet was completed faster than I could explain it. I'll scroll down the form and you'll see that the health insurance maximum is completed on line 7B. Local taxes are calculated on line 11. The cash medical support maximum is already there on line 14B. In fact, the entire worksheet, all the way down through line 31, is complete. By the way, even though I'm scrolling down through the worksheet just to show you, it's nice to know that you don't need to navigate to the bottom of this long page to know the results. That's because the annual amounts are always shown in the black boxes at the top of the screen. Now that was the simplest of scenarios, but of course you may have other factors to consider, and you needn't be concerned about that because version 10 will let you get into as much detail as it's possible to get into. Our 5-second demo, for example, didn't consider whether either of the parties had other sources of income, possible adjustments, childcare expenses, out-of-pocket health care costs, or deviations. Version 10 not only handles all these issues and more, but also has instructional materials directly related to these issues, and they're only a click away. I'll get to those in a moment. One of the new features you'll notice is that you don't have to funnel all your file and viewing activities through what we used to call the start screen. Now you see your worksheet without jumping through any hoops, and switching between worksheets, like between the long annotated form and the short form, is a simple click in the tree view to the left. Like I mentioned, the bottom line annual figures for child support with and without health insurance and cash medical support are always shown and displayed at the top of the window. This is real handy when you want to see the effect of changes that you make. Long-standing users will notice the worksheet displays are wider and they replicate the 3-column layout of the statute. As far as that's concerned, bigger is better, and this additional wider form lets you see more of the worksheet at a time, and it reduces the amount of scrolling that you might need to do, and all of that translates into a smoother user experience. User-friendliness is a keynote of version 10. In furtherance of that goal, any field that's overridable, that's the blue fields, or is read-only, like the lines that have no color or input box, have a context or pop-up menu that appears when you right-click your mouse. The menu contains a data source item, and that tells you where and how version 10 completes that particular field. In addition to the data source command, you can get additional guidance from the context-sensitive help command that is also available by right-clicking. Speaking of help, version 10 has the most extensive help files of all of our applications, and probably better help than any application I'm personally familiar with. Take a long look at the 27B Shared Parenting Deviation Help topic if you don't believe me. Version 10 takes what was already the best in help and adds even more topics dealing with new issues that were raised by our court and law office users over the years. I'll also guarantee that you'll find useful information in these help topics regardless of whether you're a rookie staff person or a veteran attorney. In addition to the available help topics, you can also access instructional video segments, which are also on YouTube, And they explain in substantial detail the various sections of the worksheets. Again, this is available by right-clicking. I can't demonstrate and discuss all the help that's available in version 10, but at the risk of exceeding the 10-minute limit, I should mention the Check Worksheet button. It's the red check mark at the top that you see at the top of the screen that you see on the toolbar. It performs hundreds of checks to let you know if you've made any errors in your data entry, and also to remind you of any fields that you've overridden. If you have the Windows version like you see here, and you have Microsoft Word as your word processor, and that includes just about all law offices, you're in for a treat. Your worksheets are previewed and printed via Word, and this is great for faster printing, for creating PDF copies of your worksheets, for accessing special print functions like duplex printing, for sending worksheets as emails, and for making notes in the margins of worksheets, and also for utilizing any of Word's other many functions, and there are many. Now, WordPerfect users, there's still a few of them out there, and they don't need to worry because the child support application works just fine without Word. So if you don't have Word, it won't make any difference because Word isn't required. It just adds some handy extra functionality. I better stop right here and clarify that while Word's not required for the Windows version, for technical reasons that I won't get into, it is required for the Mac version. There are hundreds of other changes that we made to improve the user experience. We thinned the layout lines and lightened the fills on the printed forms in order to lessen the load on printers that may be a bit older. We also placed lines under the fields of the printed forms so that they would be easier to read. In addition, we did some other things. We provided convenient keyboard shortcuts like using Control-T to introduce or to insert today's date on the signature date fields. There's quite a bit more I can go into, but keeping in mind the 10-minute limit, I'm going to move on to some of version 10's other key fields, other key features, I should say. One of the user favorite features that has always been or well, I should say that one of the user favorite features that has always been the short form, where you work in a condensed format that packs all of the information on one printed page or on one screen that's considerably shorter than the long form. The short form's not just for looks. You can do all your data entry right there on the short form. If you need additional information, the short form has all the same functions I mentioned earlier that are available on the right-click menu. When we realized how popular the short form was with our users, we even added a few buttons in order to access collateral fields that there just wasn't room for on the short form. Although you find that almost all of the collateral fields are in the right column, we still put the buttons in there just to give you the extra ones. Now, one reason for the short form's popularity is the breakdown that you see at the bottom of the screen. It details the child support per child, per week, per total, per month, per child per month, and the total per month, as well as the processing charges. In other words, any way you slice the pie, we've got it there at the bottom of that short form. Now, there's going to be many instances when you're working on a particular line and you'll need to add a few figures. Instead of tearing your workplace apart looking for a calculator, you can right-click your mouse and access the Windows calculator. And, of course, when you do your little calculation, the results can be copied from the calculator and pasted into any of the worksheet fields. Probably just as many times as you need a calculator, you might have a monthly figure that you'd like to convert to an annual amount. Of course, that's because the worksheets are nearly always dealing in annual amounts. And for that purpose, we've added an annualizer that's available also on the right-click menu. Its results can be pasted directly to the active field of the worksheet. I'll put in $250 and I'll select monthly, and I'll accept the calculated amount, and you'll see that that amount moves into the estimated, or the line 1B, or not 1B, 1A. All right, moving right along. It's worth mentioning that in order to perform a child support calculation where there are child care expenses involved, it's necessary to do more than just plug a party's income into the IRS Form 2441 child care tables like some calculators do. This method makes a serious mistake in the calculation of the federal tax care credit every time you work with low-income families. Why? Because the child care credit that you get by plugging into the table can be limited by the tax liability of the party. And you don't know the tax liability of the parties unless you do their taxes. Therefore, your child support software needs to do that tax liability calculation. The result is, if you don't do it, a mistake occurs in the worksheets with families that can least afford it. Consequently, the free calculators that you find online and the publishers that haven't been in the child support calculation business for 20 to 30 years, like Puritas Spring Software, don't have that capability, and you'll see mistakes of up to $1,000. So these are not small items. Version 10 has complete federal and state income tax software built right in to make sure that you don't make this mistake. That's why you see all the seemingly unrelated fields in the child care dialog, like the standard deduction, the exemptions amount, the alternative minimum tax, and the foreign tax credit. If you don't input this information, version 10 can't do its job. Finally, I'm going to spend a few seconds on the support scheduler. It's possibly one of the most overlooked functions in the child support application. Of course, this information is always available from the court or agency that's collecting support, but sometimes an obligor is not in agreement with the official accounting. Does that ever happen? You bet it does. Or perhaps there's interest being charged on arrearage and you want to verify the calculation, or maybe you'd like to negotiate an adjustment to that calculation. That's when the support scheduler comes to your rescue. Now, you could make individual entries in the support scheduler, but where it really does a good job is when you're dealing with a series of figures. For example, let's take the accrual of support that would be due. It can be entered in one fell swoop. I'll show you. I'm going to enter a series of $550 per month payments that began in July 4th, 2010. I clicked on the series button. I brought up this dialog here that you see on the screen. I'm completing the fields. And when I click on monthly, or OK rather, you'll see that version 10 has completed an itemized listing of each and every payment that's due with a running total. Now you can do the same thing with not just support orders, but with payments that are due, or not payments that are due, but payments that are made. And maybe an obligor has made steady payments for 2 years, but was out of work for 6 months, then resumed normal payments. Well, you could use the series button to enter the payments and simply delete any of the payments that were not made. And still, at least, the series button will allow you to make a substantial percentage of those without having to enter them individually. Now, the payments that you enter in will always take place in chronological order alongside the amounts due. And by the way, what's really cool is that if interest is an issue, ROCSG 10 will use the appropriate statutory interest rate that was in effect at the time the entry accrued. Very neat and very helpful, since the interest rate changes from year to year. Don't trust anybody else to get it right. Check it yourself by using the support scheduler. Well, that's it. There's more information on our product information page of our website, which is www.puritas-springs.com. But in this video, I've demonstrated some of the key features, new and old, and I think you'll agree that version 10 is by far your best choice for child support software. So for myself, for Jackie, and for Puritas Spring Software, we thank you for watching. Have a great day.